So first things first, I read through the script. I got a good sense of the character relationship just based off of the lines and the situation that they were in. So I read through all my lines, and I just thought of putting myself in that character's shoes and saying, what would I do and how would I feel in this situation? So there was a bit of emotional recall because there were quite a few things that I could relate to, and because it was so jarring, I also had to have moments of, okay, I need a break from this and then I need to go into this. So that's kind of how I got into my character, also just based off of mannerisms. So the big eyes in terms of shock and like staring at someone because you're very frustrated, you know, that sort of thing, that's an example. And then with my partner, who was another character, our relationship was very rocky. So for us to get into it, especially in intense scenes, we actually sat down. There was a point where we sat down at the dinner table and we started talking to each other as if we were the characters and saying, well, I did this because I felt this way, and because you reacted in this way, it made me feel like this, in which I reacted in this way too. So we really got into it, and then afterwards we slowly got out of it and then went into the intensive scenes, which was very interesting because we hadn't planned it, it just happened through conversation. Yes, there was the scene where my character is about to leave the house and she grabs the little stuffed animal and she has a moment of looking at it, and then her husband walks in, and it's just this break of, you're in that intense emotion, you know, when someone just comes and sort of disrupts it a bit. That's how it felt. So that was something that was very memorable. And then on top of that, it was one of the last scenes for the film. And this is when the massive fight happened. And there was already a build-up throughout the short film. So it was very nice to get into it. But that was very memorable because I've never shot a scene where my character's being physically attacked, but I'm not actually being physically attacked, and I'm going in and it's kind of choreographed where I'm like grabbing, you know, the face there and, you know, basically illustrating that I'm fighting back. So that was something that was very memorable because I've never done that before. So that was very interesting. Yes, most definitely. I think because it was such a short time frame for us to get the ball rolling, and like also meeting everyone day one and then getting into it and being like, okay, we are a couple and we're going through a lot of issues in our relationship with a lot of trauma in it. But also just my approach in remembering lines. I usually would sit down, take my time, either write out my lines or sit there and say the same line over and over and over again. And I didn't really have the time to do this, so it was just skimming, that I found myself throughout the day going to my script and going, right, I have learned this, but I don't know it 100%. I'm also gonna go off of what I feel, but I need to get the lines word for word. So I would sit in between scenes and just sit quietly and read through, and then go for it. Same thing again with the relationship, because it was so fast paced. It was like, we shoot a scene, shoot it a couple of times, and then it's on to the next location. And then you get out of it and then you're like, oh wow, this place is really cool. It's very interesting. And then you're going back into character. So yeah, that was also very intriguing, I will say. So a very different approach for what I'm usually used to. I really do. I feel like if anyone is in a situation like that, I mean, listen, I'm not married. I've never experienced marriage before, but I can imagine if you are going through a lot of trials and tribulations, it must be very difficult to work through those things because we're all human beings. It's our first time living, you know, so people make mistakes. But it's also a thing where when you deal with trauma, it's very important not to bottle it up and try and find a sense of feeling or trying to feel anything in that numbness that you know, the character, specifically my character, feels by going and cheating. That's not the way to do it. We need to, I know it's intense, but we need to work through the things that, you know, we kind of try to run away from, because you're not gonna fix it by running and turning to something else. It's so much better to just work through it, go to the root of the problem, talk about it instead of not communicating and then getting upset because this person has done this, but they also don't necessarily know how you feel. So it's very important to communicate and to deal with things accordingly. As difficult as it is, it's so important. So I really do hope audiences take that with them, because I mean, we tend to do it quite often with various things. It might not be cheating, it could be other things. So I think that's something very important. And also to put yourself first and, you know, your health, really just focus on that. Yeah, I would say that. I hate that my character, okay, I love that she is very upfront with how she feels, and she reacts within the moment of whatever is being said to her or whatever she feels. She lets herself feel it regardless. She doesn't really shy away from it, except from, you know, being in her house and then kind of going through a moment of escapism where she turns to another man, you know, for some sort of comfort that she's not getting at home. I really do love that she is very attentive and she feels what she feels, but at the same time, I think she has an avoidant response to a lot of things, and in situations like that, it's not always great to react on that first reaction, because that is out of emotion, and that is something we feel, it's natural, but it's very important to think things through, and I think her judgment is very clouded in a sense because of what she's dealt with, and doesn't really know who to turn to because she's not getting that support from home. So she feels very isolated. So I don't think I necessarily hate it, but I think she needs to be more open and more direct with her communication in a calmer setting, as opposed to going on the first reaction, because we tend to say things we don't mean when that happens. Yeah. I would like to share that I think it's very important. I mean, I have never been in a marriage. I don't know what it's like, so I cannot really fully understand that. But as the character, I would say, I think it's very important for you to understand who you are going to marry and who you are going to be with, and this is for both parties. Understand how they react in times of anger, times of sadness, happy times, even loss. I think that's a very important thing, because then you both, and I know that's not something you can always predict, but I think it's very important to understand the person that you're with, because in times of loss, I feel everyone reacts differently and you never know. And I think it's important to understand that you are a team and you're working together. Putting the blame on the other doesn't necessarily fix the situation. Again, it's a first reaction, but it doesn't solve the problem. And the situation is that you've both lost something and someone who is truly so dear to you, which I don't think many people, you know, can really fathom until you are in that situation. On top of that, I think it's also very important to know yourself, and you need to love deeply, even in those moments where you probably despise the other person. You need to love that person so much that you can look past anything wrong that you've done, that they've done, and you can work through it in the process. I would give that advice as my character. And to also get help when it is evident that it is needed. There's no shame in it. It's okay to take a little time out. It's okay to go quiet. It is okay to also express how you feel. And I also think it's just very important, again, to understand that you are a team. And I think people really need to focus on that. So that is the advice that I would give to anyone as my character. Interesting. I mean, I'm fairly new to acting on film, so I just mainly have the theory side of it, and then on top of that, camera and script writing, that's about it. But I would like to see more untold stories. I feel like in South Africa, I mean, in the film industry, yes, I feel like there are quite a few untold stories that are happening, but generally in the creative arts, it's like a 50-50 split of recycling material that we've used before, either internationally, especially with America or the UK, or yeah, but I think I think it would be very interesting to see various different stories from different perspectives. I always say this, I think perspectives are very important, because you can look at something in one light and then another person can look at it in another light, and I think it would be nice to see many versions of perspective, because that's what film consists of, perspectives. And yeah, I think I'd like to see a character that moves through life with blinkers, that has like no perception of what's really happening around them and what that whole process is like in their mind and in their surroundings and how they react to things, and a person who's totally opposite to that, and vice versa. I think that would be very interesting, because I don't think we always see that in depth. It's very on the surface, very surface level. So I'd like to see that. Yeah, I'd just love to see different sides of untold stories. I feel like it sounds very generic, but it's true. That is what I'd like to see. Yeah.